this is Dr. Rogini from York Family Chiropractic Care, and today our topic is going to be on back to school, so prepping the immune system. So right now we have Sue Skillins. She's our holistic nutritionist, certified holistic cancer practitioner, and a live cell microscopist. You wanted to talk a little bit about probiotics and the immune system and how it's so important to prepping your children.
Absolutely.
Especially now the winter's coming in and, a lot of people getting all the viruses and all that stuff. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, probiotics are pro-life, the way antibiotics are anti-life. Probiotics are the good guys, the good bacteria that live in our gut. There's millions of them. There's actually more microbes in us than there are cells in the human body. And the trick for the body is keeping everything in balance. Probiotics help with that. They take up the receptor site in the gut, and there are good guys fighting the bad guys. They interface with the outside world with germs or viruses or bacteria that come in through the eyes, ears, nose, throat, mucous membrane, and they interact with it and make sure that the immune system stays in balance.
So Sue, where do you get these probiotics? I know I can find them in most stores, grocery stores as well. And I actually see them also in some of the food. They actually say that they have it already in there. Mm-hmm. So in yogurt, and you can find it even in certain processed food as well.
Yes.
I've noticed them also in infant formula. So
right.
Tell me a little bit about where's the best source of probiotic you can get from?
The best source of probiotic and the first source of probiotic is in the birth canal when the baby is born. When a baby is born, it's coated in its mother's bacteria, and then it absorbs it through the eyes, ears, nose, throat, mucous membrane, and it colonizes that bacteria as its own. That becomes its defense. But we're seeing more and more and more caesarian section. So the baby, although not exactly sterile in the body, it's certainly not the kind of bacteria that it should have, and then it's born via C-section and misses that inoculation. There's only 24 hours to achieve that first seeding, and within 28 days, the baby's gut bacteria is set.
So what can mothers do then for children that are born because of from a C-section?
Well, the first thing I would hope, honestly, is that they're seeing a chiropractor in their birth. Their chances of a vaginal birth go up exponentially if their spine is aligned properly and allows for the baby to pass.
So Sue, for the mothers who had no choice and they had to go through a C-section, where can they get, what can they do for their children in terms of, for the infants in terms of probiotic?
They can, if they're breastfeeding, they can just put the probiotic on the nipple. They can put it in a bottle if they're forced to bottle feed. You could just wet your finger, have it in the palm of your hand, and let the baby suck it off. It's very easy. There's no taste, but incredibly important for the baby's health.
Okay. And what's the best source of probiotic, in terms of a product line?
Human strain probiotic is always best. I love Genestra HMF products. I think they're unequaled. Nigel Plummer out of the UK is their formulator. He does a great job traveling all over the world teaching us about the product. I have incredible results with it. And they make lines that are anything from babies being breastfed to babies being formula fed because their needs are so different. They have one called Fit for School that is for children going back to school. So it has some vitamin C and D.
Oh, I love them because my children love them because it's chewable.
It's
so
easy.
Yeah, it's so easy to take.
And that's it. If you can't get them into the child, it's not going to be very helpful. And it goes all the way up. There's HMF maternity to help colonize the vaginal canal before the baby is born. There's HMF Intensive, which has run the clinical trials to prove that their product will heal IBS in 3 months. So when I use a product, I want the companies that are doing the kind of testing on their raw materials, their batch testing, their end product testing, the third-party testing, which is done independently, to prove that what they say is in their product is actually in there. And then they run these clinical trials that are incredibly expensive to prove that their product will do what they say it will. And then other lesser companies will say, oh, well, probiotics will do this. Well, yes, HMF product will do it, but I don't know if your product will do it. I don't know where you get your raw materials. I don't know what your standards are in your facility. I like to know where it's coming from, because when I tell a client that this is going to help, it better.
Wow, it's a great tip from you. I also wanted to know, like, I know, like, in other than the products, is there any other way, like food-wise?
There is. It's a different kind of probiotic. There's, as I said, just trillions of these in the gut. And foods like sauerkraut or pickled vegetables or kimchi or miso. There's lots of foods, kefir, that has probiotic in it. They're not human strain. They're not resident strain. They're called transient. So they make their way through the gut, and they're very, very helpful while they're in there. They don't often colonize.
Okay.
So they don't stay in there, but they are very helpful to our immune system for sure.
So in terms of for children, which one do you think they will prefer to take in terms of food?
Well, it's really hard to get sauerkraut into a child. their taste buds are just not primed for that kind of food, for pickled kind of foods. So and it's not human strain. And we're exposed to Bluetooth, Wi-Fi in the schools, toxic foods, bag box canned food-like substances, all of these affecting negatively the probiotic status. So having to take a supplement is just really likely if you're alive in 2016.
So Sue, you mentioned about antibiotics in the beginning and the effect on the probiotics. So can you please explain that a little bit more in detail?
Absolutely. When you get a bacterial infection and you're forced to take antibiotics, they kill all bacteria, the good, the bad, the ugly. They kill everybody. And then you're left with an empty gut, and you're open to the next thing that's coming down the pike, which is often not good. So with women, they'll often have to take an antibiotic. They'll end up with a yeast infection. And that's because they're just open to the next imbalance or the next insult from the outside world. Probiotics help re-inoculate the gut, and the HMF products actually can resist antibiotic. And the reason that's so important to re-inoculate is 80% of our immune system is in our gut. It's largely due to that probiotic status. So keeping it healthy, keeping it primed, especially once the kids are in school, once the cold flu season starts, they're going to be exposed all the time. And this is their chance to fight back.
So thank you, Sue, for all this information. This is wonderful tips you have shared with us today, and it's going to help a lot of parents out there and prepare their kids before they go to school.
Absolutely. You're welcome.